You've probably heard the idea of the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. But what if I told you that I suspect there's actually a third part to our mind, the part that really makes up who we are? You see, we're often told that we are not our thoughts. But what does that mean? How are we not our thoughts? If we're not our thoughts, then who are we? Right? So we have the conscious mind, we have the subconscious mind. That part that lays underneath all of that is the self. That's the ideas that we're going to be going into today. Hey, champions, Chris Bean here today. Like I said, we have the conscious mind, we have the subconscious mind, and then we have the self mind. At least that's what I'm calling that third piece of it. And the conscious mind, just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about, the conscious mind is the one that's always thinking. The conscious mind is always analyzing, always going, right? That's the kind of mind that when you're meditating, you're trying to shut that brain up, to stop that brain from thinking. That is the kind of conscious mind. Then we go to the subconscious. The subconscious mind is where the habits come from, the beliefs, the automatic responses. That's kind of the basic programming for how we know to be us when we wake up tomorrow morning. But if we are not our thoughts, we've heard this before, you are not your thoughts. Where do our thoughts come from? What does that mean? You're not your thoughts. If we're not our thoughts, then what part of us is us? Where does the self live if not in the thoughts? So again, this is where that third piece comes from, the self mind. This is the part that observes what the conscious brain is thinking, the analyzing, the always going kind of mind. And the subconscious is informing the self mind. So if you want to think about this as a layer, you have the conscious mind on top, you have the subconscious below, and then the self mind is right in the middle. Right in the middle, because the conscious mind is informing the subconscious is informing the conscious, those are talking to each other, and the self is right in the middle. We get kind of our understanding, our beliefs, our habits, our basic programming for how we know to be us from the subconscious. But we're also taking in information from our outside sources, the things that we see, our thoughts that are always going, from the conscious mind, the one that we're not, has a really difficult time to kind of quiet that mind. So the self is in the middle, where the conscious mind is on top, subconscious is on the bottom, and those two are informing on each other, and the self is right there in the middle. The difficult thing, the challenge for us to do is we have to break through the conscious in order to make it to the self mind. And again, the conscious mind is the thinker, the one that's always going, right? It's always on, it's always reacting, it's always giving input on whatever it is that's going on, most of the time, even when you don't want it to, right? And this is the mind that you think, oh, well, I'm in control of my thoughts. Well, we're not really in control of your thoughts, because you can't guess what thought's going to happen next. Right? That's really difficult to do. You can't think on what thought you're going to think next. You also have it can happen with training, or so I'm told. I haven't actually made it to that point yet, but it supposedly can happen with training. But we can get to the point where we can quiet the conscious mind. We can slow that mind down enough where it is kind of just in the background. That's what we do. That's the goal, anyways. One of the goals is we are trying to meditate, trying to quiet that conscious mind. But that conscious mind is chaotic. It's filled with random thoughts, and we're certainly hardly ever in control of those thoughts. Like, for example, have you ever had a weird thought? A thought that you thought, wow, where did that thought come from? Why would I think that? Right? Those type of things are what I'm talking about. We don't have control over that. We don't have control over what our conscious mind is thinking. And of course, then we go to the subconscious. The subconscious is in my terms, in my definition is how we know to be us tomorrow morning when we wake up. Right? That is informed on from the subconscious. The subconscious is the part of us where the habits, the stories that we're living out, the beliefs come from, the learned behaviors. This works in the background. It's influencing our actions. It's influencing our instincts, but we don't necessarily have the ability to always be in contact with our subconscious. And if we do, it's for fleeting moments. And if we do, it speaks to us, from what I understand, in rhythms and rhymes and symbols and visions of not very clearly defined things. And so that's how the subconscious, if it were thinking, or if it were speaking to us, that's how it would be speaking to us. But when you drive home from work, you get home and you think, so maybe somebody asks, hey, did you see any red cars on your way home? Well, I don't actually know. Well, okay, well, how many red lights did you stop at? Well, I know that there was that one, but I don't remember. It's because that's all being intaked into our mind, right? It's all visually input in. But because we're not focusing on any key moment as we're on the way home, it all gets pushed into the subconscious. So the subconscious is full of all kinds of information that we don't necessarily need at the moment, but it is influencing how we're showing up for our day. And then now we go to the self mind. And again, this is just my idea. This is perhaps not maybe based in science or philosophical or whatever. This is my thinking on this. Okay, when we go to the self mind is the part that takes a step back. The self mind is the part of us that makes these decisions. We choose to decide to do this. We choose to make a decision on this. Our self is where we live. That's us. The self is the part, really, okay, so the self of us is the part of us. Do I believe this? Do I want to act on this? Is this thought that I just had, is that really me? So with this idea of the self mind, you have a negative thought. Your conscious mind hears it. Your subconscious maybe even trigger this idea. But your self mind gets to decide whether you let that thought define who you are. The self mind is the one who decides, yes, I'm going to go and enact that plan. And maybe it came from the conscious or the subconscious or a mixture of both, but the self mind is the one who actually goes and enacts the plan, who goes and puts that thing into action. So what does this mean? Why does any of this even matter? This all came from the idea, the quote that says that you are not your thoughts. And if we're not our thoughts, then maybe we have a little bit more control over our own identity than we realize. The self-mind is allowing us to reprogram our subconscious and shifts our conscious into awareness, right? If we can rely on the self to make the decisions, we hear the conscious is always going. We're trying to get important, useful information from the conscious because it is always going, always chattering, always talking to us. Then we have the subconscious. The subconscious is kind of behind the scenes, pulling the curtains, not necessarily out in the open and letting us know everything, but it's, in the shades, letting us do things, mysterious ways. It's speaking to us in visions. It's giving us symbols. And then the self mind has to decide, okay, here's all this stuff that I got from the subconscious. Here's all the stuff I got from the conscious. Is any of this me? What does any of this mean? And how can I put some of this into play for my day, today, tomorrow, or whatever? That is kind of my idea, my thinking on what the self-mind is there for. So if your thoughts are not us, if your thoughts are not you, then who decides to engage with what we believe in and who ultimately we are becoming? My hope is that we start to pay attention. Pay attention to your thoughts. Don't allow them just to pass through, but pay attention to what they are. Don't just accept them. Question them. Choose what you want to be. Allow that self-mind to be informed from the conscious and the subconscious to make up who you are. Don't just go on what I say or what somebody else says or whatever. Take that information in, figure out, sort it through. Okay, yep, this is important. This is maybe important later on. This is, oh man, this is garbage. Throw that stuff away and just leave what is you. Leave what is you and allow that self to make the decision on those things. What do you think? Does this idea of a self mind, does it resonate with you? Let me know. Drop a comment. Let's talk about it in there. And hey, if this was important to you, if you got something from this, let me know. Leave a like, share, subscribe. Those things mean the world to me. I'll see you next time.